Hi, Bill Henshaw again, another one of my current events videos on my UN in Court YouTube channel. And this one just some reflections here on how we should handle the system. And I know, like a lot of you out there, and it's increasing by the day with all this COVID crap, we have nothing but anger and resentment against these bastards in government. I'm not saying we shouldn't. What I am saying is that most of them are so ignorant that they really don't understand what they're doing. And this is even true with black robe bastards, for example. People in government that hold offices. I mean, they don't know. They don't know the scope of their authorities, what they can and they can't do, because they weren't taught in the mandatory public education system either. And a lot of this stuff, in my decades of experiences, evidently isn't taught at Starboard, Vail, Berkeley, or anywhere else, even in their law schools. I mean, it's that bad. They may have some elite people that go there that end up being corporate attorneys that get a bit of this in case they run into a constitutional kook like me that knows what the hell to do with it. And it won't help them if they do, because I'm going to beat them. But they simply don't get it. It's not relevant anymore. We don't have any states. We don't have any state citizens. And there isn't anything that you can do about that. So that said, we have to treat them with kindness and consideration and try to educate them at the same time. And that's exactly what I try to do. And by the way, if you send me an email, unincourt@gmail.com, and get my info on my constitutional defense document packets. And you put these in there, and I would suggest, for example, that my 82-page unopposed brief on admission of new states is a lot of education there, and put in terms that at least black robe bastards ought to understand, if not a lot more people besides. I mean, you can't get any clearer. You read that, and my goodness, I think I have like 50 odd cases in there from the 9 parts in support of it. And there's just nowhere to go. The states we have now would not be recognized by anybody, but the possible exception of Alexander Hamilton at the time that we ordained and established the Constitution and this republic. So they just don't know. And the Oakland case that I recently had a big win in that Oakland case. And during the course of events there over 11 months, my friend and I, the mom of the kid that was in jail, went and interviewed this attorney that had got assigned to him, ex parte assignment, without him even being in the courtroom. I'm not sure you can do that, but they did it in this case and more than once. And I wish I had a recording of this. If I had one of those special devices in my coat pocket, I'd be playing it now. This guy takes ignorance to a whole new level. I'd never imagined anything like this. And this illustrates the problem, by the way. You can't use their attorneys because the state bar associations are in complete control of every department of government in a de facto state. So anyone goes in there with arguments like I do and challenges their malignant, malevolent monopoly on the practice of law, that's an irreconcilable conflict of interest, and they won't do it, even if they understand what we're doing, because they've got an oath of office of the state bar that evidently takes precedence over their oath to the Constitution. And that's the big reason I changed my position, because when I'm wrong, I change. Because in South Carolina, I had a thing called notice of denial of counsel. It's now called a conditional acceptance of counsel. A big difference, because we're saying, okay, if that's all you got, we'll accept your attorney, but the relationship here is principal and agent. We tell him what we wish him to do, just like any sovereign would do. I mean, you don't imagine Queen Elizabeth takes any BS from her attorneys, do you? She tells them what she wants them to do, and they do it. And that's what should happen here, except that they haven't been trained in the issues we want to present. So therefore, what you immediately don't have is effective assistance of counsel, probably the only reversible argument that you can make. To get your conviction tossed out, that's the only right they think we have, and you clearly don't have it. And the Supreme Court has ruled what's called the Argersinger rule, that no jail time can be imposed though local law permits it unless the accused was represented at trial. And it's Argersinger v. Hamlin, 407 U.S. 25, page 40, paragraph 3, Judge. So they can't put you in jail. They can't fine you, because every time they do that, I just go down and I ask them to define dollar, which they can't do. And that ends that discussion. In fact, years ago, I went with my sweetie down to a court. I just got convicted. And I've forgotten how much the fine was, but I took a couple of 3 rolls of silver quarters down there and said, good, I want to pay it. The clerk, who was very nice, I didn't get angry at her at all, said she couldn't accept it except at face value. Can you imagine doing that, and especially with a gold coin nowadays? You want to go down there and pay a fine for $250, and you have to give them 5 gold coins. The net effect of which these days is close to 9,000 Federal Reserve notes. Wouldn't you love to have a job where you could do that all day long, pop the gold coins and put paper money in there? Terrific. But there's no lawful authority for it. In Article 1, Section 10, what does it say? No state shall coin any money or make anything but gold and silver coin to tender in payment of debt. That's where you get the badges, because that tells you we're not in a state. And that's the kind of thing we need to start doing a whole lot more of, but doing it friendly. And the amazing thing is, if you convince them we're on the same side, and we are, because we're usually dealing with local actors in local courtrooms or local counties or this, that, and the other. And the real power in the Federation and Republic isn't in Washington, D.C., or in our case, Sacramento. It's at the county level. That's where probably 85, 95% of it should be done much more efficiently, much less expensive, and with responsible people in offices that you can access and express your opinions and thoughts, just like it's supposed to be. We have a right to instruct our representatives and a right to petition for redress of grievance. And any of you out there that have found any place you can do it, I'd love to hear it. It just doesn't exist. There's nobody that gets it from the get-go, and they're not going to do it. You can't get any time. I mean, I try to get time with just about everybody out here. Going back to the governor in years past, and other people very high up in government who you would think would have the duty, with the magnitude of the issues that I advocate, to sit down and talk and come to an agreement about what to do here. It isn't that hard, yet it's never happened. And I have 5 decades worth of correspondence and USPS mail receipts to put in front of a jury and say, this is what I did over all this course of time, without any luck. So if there's any way to fix this government like what we're supposed to have, I sure as hell don't know what it is, and they don't either. And some of them on the other side don't care either. Those are the ones you really want to get them, convicted and ship their ass to Folsom or San Quentin or whatever, and let them do a spell behind bars. Because there are some like that. I'm sure you know them when you see them too. But for the most part, really public officials, especially outside of black robe badgers and attorneys who've had some legal training, they don't have a clue. And yet you go to the DMV and you've got nobody there trained, and they couldn't, if they wanted to help you, because that would be an unlawful delegation of authority by the legislature to allow them to make judicial determinations on the questions we're presenting, even though we're right and they're wrong. There's no way. You go to traffic court, see you later. They just convict you. I mean, the conviction rate there at 98.5%. That's not accidental. And they just come in there and say, pay the fine, this, that, and the other. And of course, I fire right back and say, fine, and define dollar. I give them a formal paper, define it. And oh, by the way, over the course of 5 decades, what have I paid in fees, fines, you name it? 0. Because they can't collect it. It makes it a dead letter. The law is off the books. If it can't be enforced, why bother with it? And you can do the same thing. Send me an email, youwinincourt@gmail.com. I'll get you information on my document packets. And you can learn, not only can you learn to do it, you can teach your children, and they can teach their children, our posterity, so they know going in what the situation is. And when you show up like I do nowadays in traffic courts, they won't even bother, because usually what happens is the cop doesn't show up and they dismiss the ticket in the interest of justice, or more accurately put, the interest of just us. But this is how this happens, and you just go on down the road and go to the next case, and sometimes they won't even bother to file charges. It's just that bad. Oh, and here's the thought, people. Think about this. Have you ever heard of a law enforcement thug getting charged with a willful failure to appear, particularly in a traffic court? But even in a criminal court, do they ever get charged with that? And how in the world can they charge us with a willful failure to pay, when if you use my document packet material, you're going to have 150 to 250 pages on the absence of jurisdiction of the court, which defeats the issue of willfulness that they would have to prove to convict you. That's how good this is. It really is. And they've got nowhere to go. Can't get a conviction, or if they get one, we get it reversed, which isn't easy to do in this system. But with the issues that we're advocating and absence of jurisdiction, sure enough, that's going to happen because they can't possibly say we have no right to do this. We have a right from day one in a judicial court, and we've never seen one. Not a one. That's how good this is. And this unprecedented window of opportunity we have with this COVID crisis crap. And that looks like another 4 or 5 months until they get the vaccine out there, if and when they do. There are those that say the vaccines are already prepared, and it may be that it is. That's how these bastards work, and make it look like they're doing something when they're doing nothing. They had it ready probably from day one. But whether they can give it to us involuntarily or try to give it to our children is a whole another matter. And it raises the question of just who the hell owns these children. The government thinks it does. They're their children. They created the citizenship. They own you lock, stock, and barrel. But the common law has a rather different verdict on that. And that, of course, is that the parents, are the ones that look out for the children, and they're their responsibility. That's what we want to get back to. And the sooner we do that, the better off we're all going to be. That said, remind you to send me an email, youwinnincourt@gmail.com. I'll give you information on what I got. You're going to love it. Talk more about the big Oakland win. And we can do that almost every time out because we set an unopposed record in the trial court. And now we come back, even when we file a civil rights claim, which 95% of those go in the circuit or file the first time out, we're going to win because if they reverse that and throw us out, now we get on the express train to the 9-0 part. And that's how it is. We didn't effectively state a claim upon which relief may be granted. They can't have that happen. One case like that, one case, the way the system works, is good from Portland, Maine to Portland, Oregon. That's the kind of power we have. That said, remember to like the videos, subscribe, tell your friends, get the word out. The quicker we get in there and do this as one and in unison, the quicker we get these bastards out of there and get our government back. Thank you.